Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update real quick before we get this show started. This show, by the way, is featuring Nate Wessler. He's with the National Security Project at the ACLU, and they handle the subject of drones killing American citizens. But I wanted to give you a quick update on this call to action with WBKB. I got off the phone with Lieutenant at the Michigan State Patrol this morning. I had, fully intended to turn myself in and face the music, whatever music there might be. But it turns out that the fat lady ain't singing. The lieutenant gave me a couple of guidelines to follow. And other than that, they're not going to pursue any charges against me. Like I said, I'm not doing anything wrong. But here are the guidelines that I need you to follow. In the future, anybody calling WBKB needs to realize that your phone number is being recorded. Any messages left are being saved. They're logging everything that's coming into the station. And the way the lieutenant explained to me, calling once, it's not a problem. The problem comes in when people, call repeatedly and make threats and really do harass the station. Okay, so we don't need to do that. This story has been picked up by the Activist Post, Intel Hub, the PP Simmons Ministry on YouTube, Conservative to Conservative. It's another a large blog, and I've been a guest on the Pete Santilli show already this week, and I'm scheduled to be a guest on other shows in the next week, reaching an audience of millions, okay? And if even 1/10 of these people pick up the phone and call WBKB asking them why they refuse to cover these two important stories, they're going to have to hire somebody new just to answer that melting phone line and have the fire department stand by, because that thing's going to get red hot. And you only have to call once. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just call one time. We'll show these people the meaning of dedication, that they can't shut up the truth. So, I got to take my wife to the hospital. We're going to get that chemo pump off of her till the next round. And then I'm coming back and I'm going to finish editing up this episode that you're about to watch and hopefully get it up tonight. Because, wow, the ACLU calling Obama judge, jury, and executioner. Whew. You know that when the ACLU criticizes a sitting Democratic president like that, that there is something wrong with this picture. Enjoy this interview.
Places you don't talk about at parties. You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
Keep this frequency clear. And now it's conspiracy. See, they've made that something that should not be even entertained for a minute. That powerful people might get together and have a plan. Doesn't happen. You're a kook. You're a conspiracy buff.
You're watching The Truth is Viral, the only news program on the internet trusted to deliver the truth since 2008. And now, here's your host, Mr. Bobby Powell.
Welcome back to The Truth is Viral. I'm your host, Bob Powell. And to quote Peter Finch from the movie Network, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble because John Brennan, Obama's pick for CIA director, refuses to say whether or not drones will be used domestically to target American citizens. You'd think that the first word out of his mouth would have been no. I've been telling you about this drone problem for a long time now, since before Anwar al-Alawki was killed. And now it's coming home to roost. In this episode of The Truth is Viral, I'm going to be speaking with ACLU lawyer Nate Wessler. Nate's on the National Security Project at the ACLU, and he's going to tell us what the ACLU thinks about President Obama's drone program. And it's not something that you would expect to hear from the ACLU. But we do still have a few patriots in Washington, D.C. Rand Paul, son of Ron Paul, has decided that he's going to hold up Brennan's nomination until the man answers the question.
What I want to hear from John Brennan before I agree to let his nomination go forward is that no, a CIA or the Department of Defense cannot kill someone in America without, any kind of judicial proceeding. Senator Wyden asked Brennan this in the committee hearing. He says, can you kill an American on American soil with a drone without a judicial hearing? And Brennan didn't answer the question. So we've asked it in writing. My understanding is Senator Wyden has asked this in writing, and we don't have an answer. So if you're not going to answer no, I think that means you're essentially telling us, yes, you believe that the president has the power to kill an American in America. That is appalling. I think even overseas that if there is someone who's not in the middle of firing a gun or a grenade launcher, that they really should be tried for treason if they're an American citizen. And then, you can proceed on with drone attacks. But really, an American citizen should be tried and adjudicated in a court here or abroad unless they're imminently in the act of firing a weapon.
So yeah, we could be in an awful lot of trouble. Add the drones to almost 2 billion rounds of ammunition that the Department of Homeland Security has recently purchased, and I don't think it's a real stretch of the imagination to see where this is going. So why don't we go ahead and talk to Nate. A little bit of disclosure here. I actually recorded this interview last year. But that video only got 745 views. And since this information is still relevant today, I decided that I'd re-edit it and just reshoot the studio portion of it, my portion of it, so that we can maintain some continuity. It'll be more like a conversation. Last year, suspected and accused terrorist Anwar al-Alawki, another man by the name of Samir Khan, and al-Awaki's 16-year-old son, Abdul Rahman, were killed in drone strikes. The interesting part about it, as I've told you 100 times, is that Anwar al-Alawki and Samir Khan and Abdul Rahman, the little 16-year-old boy, were all American citizens. And not one of them was charged with a crime in a court of law. So I asked Nate, what does the ACLU have to say about these murders? And here's what he said.
Yeah, absolutely. We have very serious concerns about the killing of Anwar al-Alawki, as well as 2 other U.S. citizens. And there are, I think, 2 overarching issues. One is that we believe that no president should have unchecked authority over the lives of U.S. citizens. It's not about Democratic presidents or Republican presidents. It's about due process. And our other concern is with transparency. We at the ACLU, as with all members of the public, have very little information about the legal authority and the factual basis for the government's claims that it can kill U.S. citizens using drones.
As I've said 100 times at least, what makes these killings most disturbing is the fact that these American citizens were never charged with a crime in a court of law. Now that's antithetical to everything that this country is supposed to stand for. The founders specifically put in the Bill of Rights, the Fifth Amendment, which states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That's very unambiguous language. No person. It doesn't say, maybe this person if we think he's a bad guy. Okay? It just doesn't happen like that. That's not what being an American is supposed to be about. If you're accused of a crime, you get your day in a court of law before the federal government can just snuff out your life. So I asked Nate, was there any good reason why the Obama administration didn't even attempt to take this through the courts?
The United States has a fully functioning court system, a court system that is used every day to address serious matters, including allegations of terrorism. So if the government, in fact, had information that Anwar al-Awlaki was engaged in actual activity that was likely to lead to the deaths of U.S. citizens or others, or that he actually had engaged in that activity, then that should furnish the government with grounds to go to court, seek an indictment, charge him, and proceed to trial. And there are lots of examples in recent years and in the further past of successful prosecutions against people accused of terrorism. And really, without more information from the government, it's impossible to know what kind of evidence they had. If they had to go to court, they would have to produce evidence to the judge or the jury, prove their case, and then a verdict would be issued. Here, the government, the president, and those working for him seem to have taken on the duty of judge, jury, and executioner all by themselves. And without more information about the evidence they had, it's impossible to assess whether it was legal.
One of the excuses that the Obama administration gave for not charging al-Alawki with a crime was that he was in Yemen, which was supposedly beyond our reach. I guess things have changed since Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was captured in Pakistan. Apparently our capabilities have diminished quite a bit. Let's see. This was also a subject of interest in a recently leaked Department of Justice white paper that allows government officials, not just the president, but those that he designates, high government officials. They must be high if they think they're going to get away with this. High government officials can authorize drone attacks on American citizens without even having proof that they're actively involved in any kind of a terror attack. Boy, they're really stretching it. So I asked Nate, is there anything that the government can do legally, other than just summarily executing an American citizen without charging them with a crime? And here's what he said.
Certainly the United States could seek a criminal indictment against somebody who's out of the country and then take measures to try to secure their capture and bring them back to the United States. Again, because the United States government hasn't released to the public any information about what happened, we don't know whether they even tried to capture al-Alawki and bring him to trial. They seem to assert that they wouldn't have been able to. And that really goes to another concern, which is that under both international law and under the U.S. Constitution, there are narrow circumstances where the police or other parts of the government can use lethal force against somebody without going through a trial and a death penalty. But those are very narrow circumstances only if that person is posing an imminent threat of harm to law enforcement officers or other people. And we just have no evidence from the government that there was that kind of an imminent threat here. I think it's pretty uncontroversial if somebody's running down the street waving a gun, pointing it at civilians or pointing it at police officers. Police are allowed to use a weapon and shoot at that person to try to neutralize the threat. But as you said, the fact that al-Alawki was on a government kill list for months or years, and that they apparently knew his location for at least some period of time, suggests that whatever threat he posed may not have been imminent in anything like that sense.
Yet another excuse. The Obama administration's got a lot of excuses these days. Another excuse for not affording al-Alawki a trial was that a lot of the evidence was alleged to be classified. Now, I asked Nate, is there a way that we can balance legitimate needs of national security against the citizens' right to have a trial before they're executed? And here's what he said.
Well, I actually think that regular Article III courts, the federal courts that take care of judicial business every day, they have adequate procedures to deal with classified information. There are statutes and there are court rules that allow the government to use classified information and to reveal what is necessary to the defense attorneys, but not to the public. And those statutes can be effective in balancing the need for justice against what can sometimes be legitimate needs for security and secrecy. But for the government to allege that it can make the determination about who's a threat and when they can kill them totally in secret, in some secret bureaucratic process without ever going to a court at all, is pretty disturbing and troubling.
The Department of Homeland Security has issued guidelines to determine who might be a terrorist. Those guidelines can be so broadly interpreted that just about anybody can be deemed a threat to national security. Homeland Security is watching you. Every post that you have ever made on the internet, in any forum, any post on social media like Facebook or Twitter, every email, every text that you've ever sent, every phone call that you've ever made, they all go through the National Security Agency's Echelon program. And what that is, it's massive server farms that go through all this data with a fine-tooth comb looking for buzzwords. And they're going through incomprehensible amounts of data. And they even have computer program software that can allegedly predict what you're going to do by analyzing what you've done in the past, what you've said. Now, if you've made statements that say that you're pro-life, you're on a list. If you're sick of unnecessary war, you're on a list. If you care about the environment, you're on a list. If you're vocal about your support for the Constitution, oh boy, are you on a list. I wasn't aware that supporting the idea of law and order made a person a national security threat. If you've got a Ron Paul bumper sticker, you're on a list. You're a possible threat to national security. If you've ever taken a stand or donated money to any cause whatsoever, honey baby, you're on a list. I've lost count of how many lists I'm probably on. I do know that the DHS is collecting personal information on news anchors, journalists, bloggers, or anybody that uses traditional and or social media in real time to keep their audiences situationally aware and informed. Well, that's our job, to keep our audience situationally aware and informed. A lot of people don't take that job seriously, but that's what journalists do. So why are they collecting our personal information? That's what I want to know. That recently leaked Department of Justice white paper says that Barack Obama and those high government officials can order the death of any American citizen they wish. And those citizens don't even have to be involved in a terror plot. They don't even have to be charged with a crime before they can be summarily executed by officials in the Obama administration. So using the government's own criteria, even a peace-loving person like myself can be targeted for assassination. That decision being made behind closed doors without benefit of counsel for the accused. Did we wake up in Soviet Russia? You wanted hope and change? Well, we ain't got no hope left. Got plenty of change, though. James Madison said that the accumulation of all powers, executive, legislative, and judicial, in the hands of one man is the very definition of tyranny. I asked Nate what the ACLU had to say about that.
That's right. It's a very serious concern. I mean, this is not a partisan issue. Today it's President Obama. Tomorrow it might be a President Perry or a President Palin or a President Clinton. Who can say? And for any president to claim unilateral authority without checks and balances to decide who's a terrorist and who can be killed without going to a court is very troubling. There's another. This sets a dangerous precedent inside the United States, but I think we should also be worried about the precedent that this is setting around the world. Drone technology certainly isn't limited to the United States. Many dozens of countries either have or are pursuing unmanned drones like the ones that the U.S. uses. And the U.S. activity in Yemen and Pakistan and Somalia and many other countries we think could be setting a dangerous precedent. Who's to say that in a few years from now it won't be Russia or China or Israel or Iran that's claiming authority to send their drones into other countries or into the United States to target U.S. citizens without trial. And that sounds awfully dangerous to us.
Now, if I were to kill somebody, or if you were to kill somebody, even accidentally, we'd spend a long time behind bars. I asked Nate, other than impeachment, is there any mechanism by which a sitting president can be charged with a felony?
Sure. Well, let me tell you first what the ACLU has been doing and is doing now about this. Our number one concern immediately is to get more information. Until we know who's making the decisions, how they're being made, what the evidence is, it's very hard to bring any kind of substantive lawsuit against the president or anyone else in the administration. So we are pursuing Freedom of Information Act requests and lawsuits, trying to compel the government to release information about what the legal authority is it claims for killing Americans and others with drones and other targeted killing methods, and what the facts are that make it think that it can do that.
Okay.
Now, as I'm sure you're aware, the ACLU brought a lawsuit on behalf of Anwar al-Awlaki, working with his father last year before he was killed.
Right.
And that was dismissed by the federal court, with the court was essentially saying that this wasn't a matter for the courts to get involved in. It was a matter for the executive. We are always evaluating what the potential options are for legal activity in the future. But we certainly are hopeful that the courts in the future will see this as an issue that, in fact, they do have a role in providing a check against government authority.
Well, that was Nate Wessler. Nate's a fellow at the National Security Project at the ACLU, and the man is telling it like it is. Judge, jury, and executioner. I wonder what the history books are going to say about this. The Republic died when Anwar al-Awlaki was murdered. Never before in the history of the United States has the government ordered the death of an American citizen without ever having charged him with a crime. And what we're left with is a tyranny. Now, like I said at the beginning of the program, we're in a lot of trouble. The current CIA nominee, John Brennan, was asked by Senator Rand Paul if he would support the use of drone strikes domestically against American citizens. And Senator Paul, much to his credit, says that he's going to hold up the nomination of John Brennan as CIA director until that question is answered. Thank you, Senator Paul, for having the guts to stand up for what's right. I'm at a loss for words. I really am. What happened to this republic? Is it the boiling frog syndrome? Just one new law at a time, one new regulation? Let people get used to it That's what I said about the assassination of Anwar al-Awlaki last year, was that he was chosen as a target because he's one of those types of people that nobody is going to miss. And, you know, a lot of people think that he was a CIA agent, and it's a fact that he was hosted at the Pentagon as a moderate Muslim, somebody that they could deal with. I'm kind of, you know, of the opinion that he was killed for a couple of reasons. The first being that, you know, he was pretty vocal about his hatred of the United States, and so I could see where using those statements, you know, he might be deemed to be some kind of a threat at some point. But the fact is that he wasn't involved in any active terror plot. He'd never done anything but run his mouth. And that's what I do. I run my mouth. I am no friend of the Obama administration. But I love my country. I love this republic. The Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were the most beautiful documents ever penned by anybody. Where all men are created equal. That's the place I want to live. Where all men are created equal. Where everybody is subject to the same rules. Just because you're President of the United States, by hook or by crook, does not give you the right to murder somebody. Hopefully, one day, we'll see Barry Soweto behind bars. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I will keep my fingers crossed. So, there's a little housekeeping that we've got to take care of before we call this show wrapped up. And that is that the call to action is continuing in, about the threats to murder me and my children and rape my cancer-stricken wife by the sweet and gentle left. Apparently, the management at WBKB TV 11 here in Alpena, Michigan, is so deeply in the pockets of the Obama administration. Either that or they've got their heads shoved so far up his culo that they refuse to cover the activities that I've been doing up here, the Second Amendment demonstration. When you've got a large man with a large gun standing on the side of the road handing out flyers and walking into businesses, honey baby, in a small town like Alpena, Michigan, I'm here to tell you that that's news. When there are threats of murdering an innocent man and his children and raping a completely innocent woman, doesn't even have anything to do with what I'm doing, that's news. It's not even comparable to the Sandy Hook tragedy, but if I can offer an analogy, it's like the Newtown Bee not covering it when everybody else in the world is covering that situation. So basically what it is that WBKB is letting their ideology guide their news judgment. And you can't do that, because you're federally licensed by the FCC to provide a public service. You can't sit there and lie, even by omission, without facing consequences. And those consequences are going to continue in the form of phone calls to your station, WBKB. They're going to continue in the form of posts to your Facebook. They're going to continue in the form of tweets sent to you All I'm asking people to do is to hold your feet to the fire, to make you do your job. You have a responsibility to the people of northern Michigan, and you're failing at it dramatically. I'm not going to put up with it. So you're going to cover my stories. I'm not saying you have to cover every story I do, but these two are important. And they're legitimate news stories. The rape accusation against my wife is an open investigation at the Sheriff's Department right now. That's news. That's news of public record. And it's your responsibility to cover it. And I'm going to make sure that you do. Or you're going to see me standing tall at your FCC licensing hearing, and you're going to be answering my formal complaint. Now, as a result of this, WBKB has told the State Patrol, the Michigan State Patrol, that they want to file charges of harassment against me. Knock yourself out. I don't think that the State Patrol will do anything about it because I'm not committing a crime. If it's a crime to ask people to call a news outlet to inquire about the progress of a story, it's a crime that I'm unaware of. Yet WBKB says that they feel threatened. When somebody threatens to rape your wife, then you can feel threatened. The progressive left up here is embedded in this area. Last June, when I had a local DJ on my program to talk about the explosion that he felt, that he had put on Facebook, asking if everybody else had felt the same explosion, he was threatened with the loss of his job if I didn't take that video down by these same people. And that video had nothing to do with Obama. But I was told by a person that knows that because my other videos had been critical of Barack Obama, that's why they did this. A bunch of scumbags is what you are. You would threaten to take away the livelihood of a man that's just about to have a baby. Well, his wife had the baby. Just because he appeared as a guest on my show. Didn't even have anything to do with what you were complaining about. They asked for equal time on that radio station. My report didn't even air on that radio station. Had nothing to do with that radio station or anything that that radio station does. I was just interviewing a man who happened to be an employee of that radio station. So they took it out on him. Those are the depths to which these scumbags will sink. Well, now you don't have anybody to threaten, do you? You can't threaten me. I've got nothing to lose. You can't take away my job. Can't take away my health insurance. There's nothing that you can do. If you want to debate me open and honestly, I will accept your invitation in a heartbeat. Otherwise, you can stand by for a pissed off jarhead. Just because I'm mad, though, Don't feel threatened. Oh my gosh. Morons. Nobody has anything to fear from me unless they're coming after my family. It's that simple. A lot of people do fear the truth, though. Now that should make you lose sleep at night. Because I'm coming. And I'm bringing the truth with me. I'd like to remind everybody about the Second Amendment March. It's sponsored by secondamendmentmarch.com. It's coming up on March 20th. And we'll be down at the Capitol steps in Lansing again. Hopefully there won't be a blizzard between me and the state capitol on March 20th. We're going to stand up and we're going to tell the Obama administration that we're not going to give up our guns. So, that should be a fun time. I guess that's all I've got for tonight. I could go on ranting and raving for a long time, but the important part is that even the ACLU knows that there's something wrong in this country. When innocent people that have done nothing wrong, that have never said a hateful word, can be classified as possible domestic terrorists. And the guilt of an accused man will never be known. Because the facts weren't brought out in a court of law. Is that too much to ask for? That the government follow the laws that it was founded upon? I really don't think it is. I'm ranting again. Oh well, I've got much more. I'm going to be sticking around for a while and not getting rid of me. Until the next time, thank you for watching The Truth is Viral. I'm your host, Bob Powell. And as always, God bless, Semper Fi, and oorah.
Thank you for watching The Truth is Viral with your host, Bobby Powell. Make sure to follow The Apocalypse on Twitter at The Truth is Viral. Like The Truth is Viral on Facebook, and if you can, please remember to donate to the cause via PayPal at www.bobpowell.blogspot.com.
Smack, runner, your game is through. Smack, runner, I'm talking to you.